Hey, it's me again. I got interrupted, so I had to delete the video, start back over again, because I got a stupid ass phone call because it was over somebody that I give two shits about. I don't care what this person does. I could care less. I'm gonna scoot you forward a little bit. Tremble, tremble, shake, shake. Now the wind is blowing this direction, so you probably get some noise because, you know, Mother Nature is being bipolar today, and, you know, it is what it is. My nose is itchy. That's what I keep rubbing my nose for. No, I didn't put no booger sugar in my nose either. But anyway, the topic I was making earlier before I got interrupted is I was talking about climate change, and people, and there's a lot of people who's gonna debunk it. They're gonna say, "Oh no, you're crazy. No, there ain't no climate change. It's perfectly fine." Blah blah blah. But I can remember as a kid growing up in the '70s. In downtown Louisville, most of the time in the summer, it was like, I don't know, 70, I would say 75, but about 80 to 90 degrees, give or take some of that ballpark. But we didn't have this crazy ass humid shit as we do now. Now it's like from about mid-June to about sometimes even up into October, you walk outside and, you know, you're taking a secondary bath because the humidity is so bad it makes Florida look like, you know, Alaska. But everybody wants to laugh about climate change, climate control, all this other stuff. Oh yeah, y'all just crazy. No, seriously, because in the Ohio Valley region, which I live in, even though I'm in Kentucky, I'm in displacement of the region areas called the Ohio Valley. And in wintertime, one day it could be 80 degrees, the next day it can, you know, be asshole deep in snow, in 24 to 48 hours. It'll be, I wouldn't say 80 degrees, but it'll be full sun, you know, fairly decent feeling weather. You know, it's a flip of a coin, especially in wintertime. There is no, I mean, the weatherman is the only job I can think of that he can tell you it's going to be this day, and it does something totally different, and basically nobody cusses him, nobody wants to throw rocks at him, because even though he's the weatherman, he can't really pinpoint exactly 1,000% it's going to be this. So, but the weatherman's job in this area in wintertime got to be a really sucky one, because, you know, even one of the guys I watch on TVs has stated a couple of times off and on through his career as a weatherman that in the wintertime, you might as well flip a coin, because I can say it's going to be doing this, and it'll be something totally opposite. So, even if when the weatherman says it, yeah, there's a reason for it. But, yeah, I mean, and I don't want to say I'm a tree hugger, but in some ways, I have a tree hugger kind of attitude upon certain things. My carbon footprint is very, very small. A lot of everything that comes to me, whether it be from the grocery store, in the mail, you know, things I've acquired, you know, like from other stores, the only thing, and I hate to say this, but about the only thing that really goes into the trash is plastic. Now, we have a plastic recycler. Well, we have a couple companies, garbage companies, that acquire plastics to be recycled, but the main one, which I have to use because I don't have a choice, because, see, Kentucky started this thing some years ago, and it started because a lot of people in eastern Kentucky would just take the trash and just dump it wherever, and whatever sinkhole, whatever holler, they just take the trash and dump it. And So the state of Kentucky got involved, and they made a ruling kind of like it goes from western Kentucky to eastern Kentucky, from northern Kentucky to southern Kentucky. If you do not live in a zoned area as a city limits, you are required by state law mandatory county pickup by whatever trash facility that is close to your residential area. That is who you have to use. Now, some years ago, I could use Waste Management or I could use Rumpke, but they had county contracts, and I could choose one of them two. And they both had a plastic recycling program, amongst other things. Now, I know Waste Management, they will compress a lot of things and they'll ship it to some other facility and let them deal with it. They do get a kickback, which I don't care, because there's not a plastic recycling anything in the state of Kentucky as far as I know. And but the people I have now, which is Red River, they don't have any recycling things whatsoever. It's, that it is basically throw your stuff in the trash, we'll come pick it up and dispose of it. Now, anything I get, whether it be a soup can, aluminum can, a steel can, of course I separate my contents of like whatever metals it is, but whether it be copper, aluminum, white shred, metal, steel, stainless, brass, you name it, I separate all my contents. And whichever one fills up faster is the ones I take to the scrap yard and I turn in for scrap. A lot of my papers get shredded, and whatever doesn't get burnt with some wood, those ashes get scooped up and they get dispersed amongst my garden beds and certain part of the yard for soil enrichment, enhancement type thing. And certain papers get shredded up, and I use it in my chicken coop for bedding. And it works. It's not the best in the world sometimes, but it works. And then once you get a bunch of chicken manure mixed with them paper shreds and everything else, of course the chicken manure has a lot of that high-end ammonia and everything else. It destroys paper like you wouldn't believe. And I just mix that in with some other stuff I have around the yard, and I make a really high-end compost, or I let it shred up the way it's supposed to with the manure, and I'll save it in a 5-gallon bucket and let it dry and harden real good, and I'll put it out in the sun with little vent holes, so therefore it aerates and it gets all that vapors and gas off of it, and I don't blow my bucket up. And then once it's nice and compact and really good, hard and dry, I'll chunk it up and grind it up and mix it with some water and make me a liquid fertilizer. But there's all kinds of things you can do to lower your footprint amongst your everyday life. And now, a lot of my friends, they'll go to the store, they'll buy something, use it, throw it in the trash, and be done with it. And as much as I have disagreements with a lot of other states, especially state of California, I applaud state of California on one thing. It's mandatory recycle. If you was to say take a bunch of metal, of whatever, like lawn chairs or something like that, and throw them out to the side of the curb for garbage, or try to hide it in your garbage, and the garbage company sees it, they'll make a note of it and turn it into the company, then the company turns it into the county or the state, and then they fine your ass for not recycling like you're supposed to. I think that is a wonderful idea. But then again, it kind of sucks for me being a junk man, because when they have what they call spring cleanup and fall cleanup around this area, a lot of the rich people throw away all kinds of crazy shit that, if I don't turn it in for scrap metal, I can use it or give it to somebody that can reuse it, or I can swap shit back and forth for things I might want to get with it. It's crazy. A lot of the rich people around here will throw away really nice items. And it's just because, you know, it's easier to throw it out to the trash curb than to be like, hey, you know, do you want this secondhand? You know, so they just throw it away, and it enlightens my day when it's trash cleanup, because we'll go around and we'll like pick through trash to, you know, find these really great items. Hell, one year I found a spool that was every bit that big around, and it had, I mean, it was a complete spool. This thing had to weigh probably 80 to 100 pounds of wire, copper wire wrapped up inside of it. And what it was is it was the electrical wire that what you'd use in like a stove or a dryer, but it was a heavy gauge wire. And there might have been maybe 5 or 6 feet cut off the spool. And but most of it was still in the plastic, and they just threw it up for trash. I was like, hell yeah. I mean, if I was to take that roll to the scrapyard, I'd get a dirty price because it's in the wire. Now, what I'm about to say is, you know, it's bad, don't get me wrong. But if you was to take that roll of wire and unspool it and just dig a big old ball of it, throw it in a big ass 55-gallon drum with some other stuff and burn that shit off, all that coating off that wire, then you get a different price for it. Now, is that EPA friendly? No, it's not. But if you want, like, taking a razor blade and holding it by hand and pulling it and doing it that way, throw it in a big ass burn barrel and just burn the shit out of it, pull it out, wash it off real good. Now you got clean, well, somewhat clean, number 1 or number 2 wire. But what I did is, I didn't burn it, because I know it was too useful for other things. I still got it in my shed. And whenever I want to run me a makeshift speaker wire that's really long, snip, splice, and there you go. And it works. It's kind of jerry-rigged a little bit, but hey, you know, it works. I just know a lot of people I know that have known growing up, they throw anything and everything in the trash. Now, well, like my soup cans, when I say soup cans, I'm talking like corn, peas, green beans, peas, beets, carrots, you know, your standard, you know, food can. Peel the paper off, dispose of that properly. Sometimes you want to peel the paper off, like one of my local scrap yards, they don't give a shit if the paper's on or off because you're getting the same price regardless. And but a lot of times I'll peel the paper off and dispose of it the way that most people should, and not throw it in the trash. I know, you know, I haven't taken my cans in a while, so I might be looking at a small little gold mine, or I could be, you know, just be spinning my wheels. But I know a couple of years ago I took in 8 33-gallon hefty bags of soup cans, and this was a year's supply of soup cans. I got like $80 off of like those bags of cans that are like metal, well, zinc / metal and whatever they mix with it. And I made more money off steel cans than I made off aluminum cans. And I had 4 times the amount of aluminum cans. So, you know, that's why I don't throw stuff away. And of course, people, they're like, oh, you're like Fred Sanford, you're like Jethro Bodine, you know, you got all this pile of stuff sitting up and everything else. Well, once I haul it off, you know, it's changing my pocket because, you know, yeah, I'll make probably, on a yearly run, I'll make anywhere between 80 to maybe like $150. And then I take that money and I don't put it in the bank, but I take the money and I bring it to the house. I'll stick it in one of my jars or whatever like that, And whenever we need something on the side, say we need a couple loaves of bread and a couple gallons of milk, I'll dip in that, take the money out, and we'll go get that. And that way it keeps the money in our main account. I mean, it might not be a huge amount of money, but you know, it keeps it there for when you have that little small bump in the middle of the night that, you know, the next day you're like, well, it's not a whole lot, but you know, it's enough to help out to where, you know, you're not sitting there, you know, trying to pull your pockets out looking at lint. I gotta make sure I get no bug, no bees in my drink, because I just swatted one a second ago. He was up here. I guess he smelt my chicken. Here he is right there back. Well, good luck getting tea now, baby. I'm gonna turn my glass upside down. So maybe he'll chase that bit of tea on that rag that's upside down and leave me alone. Today, I had a small episode. I won't get into it, but for about 3 or 4 hours, I was basically, I wasn't worth a shit. I wasn't able to do anything. And it really kind of stumped me, because I had planned on coming out here and, you know, taking care of a few things around the yard while the kids were at school and the wife was preoccupied. I could come out here and just, you know, have some time to myself, and I wasn't able to, which is fine, you know. You know, things happen. You know, you just got to bend and grit. Now tomorrow's supposed to rain. We're supposed to get a good amount of rain coming in, so I do have a couple hours of daylight left. So I think that I'm gonna try to at least attempt to do a couple things around here, and I might have to go in the woods tomorrow while it's raining to retrieve a couple of other items that I've been wanting to get, and kind of do it that way. Which, you know, if that's the way it be, if that's the way it must be, that's the way it must be. Sunday's supposed to be really nice, up in the 70s, full of sun, everything else. I think I'm gonna fire up the grill Sunday and just have a small little cookout, maybe a couple people over, if that, you know. And see, I invited Montez and his old lady, but he said he has a prior engagement to some kind of a spa thing, and which, you know, if he can't make it, you know, he can't make it. You know, I'm not gonna be like, well, you gotta be here. No, you got a prior engagement, you got a prior engagement. But if he can't make it, I might see about, you know, saying, hey, you know, I'm gonna throwing some stuff out here on the grill and some other shit, and y'all want to come out and, you know, eat up some free food and sit around and bullshit. So, and that's a good thing about this time of year, when it's nice in the 70s and close to 80, that, you know, you can still do stuff like that. Now, the only thing that's going to suck is Saturday night, time goes back an hour. So right now, when I'm sitting here like, oh, this is great, it's like 5 o'clock, nice and sunny, it's going to be 4 o'clock, nice and sunny. And then say when it gets dark at, say, 7, now it's going to get dark at like 6. So it's gonna suck in some ways. But the only good thing I can really say about this is the last time it's going to take place, because time goes back this coming weekend, and then sometime in March, when it springs forward, they're going to leave it when it springs forward, and it's going to be that way until whoever in the government or whoever elsewhere says this was a great idea at the time, it sucks, we don't like it, so we're going to revert back to the old ways of springing forward and falling back. So falling back this weekend for 6 months, and then 6 months later we're going to spring forward, and it's going to stay that way until, like I said, until somebody in government decides, hey, you know, we screwed up again. And see, that's another thing that kills me. A lot of these people follow everything the government tells them, you know, for years and years and years. You know, look at all the cigarette ads. I mean, from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, into the 70s, and about 70s into 80s, that's when he started seeing a decline of cigarette ads on billboards and on TV and everything else. And as time went on, it was like, oh, smoking's bad for you. But for years, everybody was, oh, smoking's fine, but there's no issues. And then my lifetime as a kid growing up in the 70s, everybody said, oh, you shouldn't eat eggs. Eggs are bad for you. They cause cholesterol. They gum up your arteries and everything else, and yada, yada, yada. Well, all of a sudden now, within the past 5-10 years, oh, eggs are good for you. They're high in protein. They're really good for you. It's a healthy, it's a healthy kind of fat, and blah, blah, blah. And, but there are still some people who say eggs are bad for you. Well, every day for breakfast, my grandparents ate 2 or 3 eggs each and had a big old thing of bacon and toast and coffee, and they had that every day for their breakfast for probably 60 years. And they both lived up in their, well, my grandmother died in her 70s because she had a brain aneurysm, which was due to her not taking her medicine. But my grandfather fought cancer 4 different times, and finally on the 5th time it kind of took him. But hell, he was up in his late 80s, and if it wasn't for that, hell, he probably would have lived even longer, because both of their mother, my grandmother's mother and my grandfather's mother, they both lived up until mid to late 90s. And my grandmother's mother chewed tobacco and smoked a pipe. So, yeah, I mean, and I know some of y'all are going to be sitting there laughing about it, but I shit you not. She chewed tobacco and she smoked a pipe. And a lot of times she did it at the same time. And, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But, and then even my grandfather's mother was diabetic, and she still ate everything that, and even the doctors, they're like, oh no, you gotta quit this or you're gonna die. And she's like, I'm in my 90s and you're worried about me dying? Really? She's like, at this point, I'm just gonna eat what I want. And here's the best thing about it. With her, diabetes didn't kill her. Old age killed her. So, and she got diagnosed with being diabetic like when she was in her 60s. And she lived 30 years past that and everything else, and diabetes didn't kill her, old age killed her. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Don't follow everything the government tells you, because truthfully and honestly, a lot of the shit that the government says is good for you, truthfully in the long run, and this was my joke for the longest time. I made all kinds of jokes about this on Facebook. I've been fat checked on Facebook so many times over it. You name it. I've been ball busted and rammed and reamed and everything else you can think of by the government attachments for fat checkers and Facebook and other people and everything else. My joke was, I said, as soon as all this COVID shit kind of runs its course and everybody takes all these stupid shots and everything else, I said, in 30 years, mark my words, there's going to be a TV ad or a commercial ad somewhere that says, did you take the COVID vaccination? And if so, call this number because you're entitled to a lawsuit because of blah, blah, blah. Mark my words, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, and then on top of it, speak about the COVID shit, there are so many people that died that did not die of COVID, but was listed as COVID because that was so-called during the pandemic time. So therefore, since they died, I had a friend of mine's dad die of a heart attack at the kitchen table, like the classic scene of grab the chest and lean back, stiffen up, sat there for a few minutes and hit the table, does a doornail. Died of a heart attack. Was in, I wouldn't say greatest health. He had other health issues, but COVID had nothing to do with it. And they're still fighting the doctors to take him off the registry list of having to die of COVID when he died of a heart attack. Buddy of mine, riding a motorcycle, no helmet. Oh, I'm a badass because I don't have to wear a helmet. Blah, this is great, blah, blah, blah. Car pulled out, he hit the car, he hit the car. When he hit the car initially, that's what killed him. And then he flung through the air, hit the ground, flopped around like Raggedy Ann doll, and splattered himself even more across the roadway. And they listed him as COVID because he died during the so-called pandemic of COVID. So he died of COVID. And he initially died when his head hit the side of that car and it flung his ass even more. But he died of COVID. Yeah. So don't believe everything the government tells you. Now, I'm not saying, you know, everything the government says is bullshit. You know, you got it. God gave you a brain. You can decipher whatever you want to decipher. But a lot of stuff that the FDA and everybody else says, oh, this is blah, 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 blah. Some of it might be true, but a lot of it is bullshit. So, and I say this because, well, I don't want to say I worked for the government at one time. I kind of did, but I kind of didn't. When I drove a truck, I worked for a certain company, and we pulled a lot of government material, a lot of government loads, whether it be tanks to food to building utensil thing, you name it. You know, we pulled all kinds of government shit. And I've been to a lot of restricted areas. I've been to a lot of places that people could only dream about going to. That's government-filled facilities that are out west. Now, of course, my kids were like, well, did you get to go out of the truck and walk around, look at things? No, because there's a great big ass sign as soon as you pulled in these certain areas that said no cell phones, no cameras, no pictures, no communication on the radio. You know, sit in your truck, don't get out, don't do this, don't do that. You know, I mean, and they watched your ass too. So I mean, it wasn't like, you know, you pull in this you pull in this desert lot and you're 50 miles from nowhere and you can't see nobody. Doesn't mean because you can't see them there that they can't see you somewhere with a recording device. So, yeah, I've been to a lot of places that people would always dream about getting into, but and this was the comical thing. I could not tell you what happened to my picture, but I had the trucking company I drove for always carried little disposable cameras. And that way, if you had an accident on the interstate, you know, you could take pictures of everything, and that way, whenever anything was said and done, you turn the camera into the company, they develop the pictures, and, you know, you got all the proof you need right there. But I took one of those cameras, and I was taking pictures of, let's say, Area 52. And I was taking pictures of all the things that were said, no cameras, no cell phones, you know, no communication devices, stuff like that. Of course, I got a picture of it. My goal was to have it blown up really big in a poster form, but somebody somewhere at some time relieved me of my picture before I could get it done. And yeah, I thought it was comical. Harley starting up over next door. That's my neighbor Stacy. He must be getting ready to go to the Huddle House, get him a cup of coffee and a couple other things. But yeah, I mean, and then on top of it, this is what's really great, is now I kept my PayPal account because, well, there's a few reasons why I kept it. But when PayPal was like, oh, if you spread any misleading information, we're gonna fine you $2,500 no matter who you are. That's fine, you know, do what you want to do, so be it. But I kept my PayPal because I have a person that I went to school with. She lives in Argentina, and she was a foreign exchange student, and we've kept in contact over the years and everything else. And of course, right now is her summertime. This is going to be our winter. This is springtime for her going into summer, and I try to well, I try to send her money when I can. And, cause like a couple years ago, there was a picture of like this great big ass toy kind of playhouse kind of thing. And she listed it as like 5,600 something like dollars. And I sent her a message. I was like, man, what kind of shit are you smoking? That's crazy. I said, ain't nobody gonna spend that much money on something like that. I'm like, man, your dick's on sideways. And of course she replied, she put laugh out loud, replied back, and she said, no, that's in our currency. But in your currency, it's like $100. So $100 to us is like 5,000 whatever in theirs. So I try to send her money when she will take it, because a lot of times she's like, she's like, just keep your money, don't send it to me, blah blah blah, like that. And but sometimes I will anyway, and it's kind of like one of those sneak attack kind of things. And then on top of it, I have an uncle who lives down in Alabama, and sometimes he'll send money up to me. Not all the time, but occasionally he'll send money up here, and I can use that for kids for Christmas, or I can use it for stuff for the old lady or everybody in the household. Then there's other people I know that that live over in Missouri, that whenever I send them something, of course I haven't received anything from them because I haven't asked for it. But she's mentioned a few times, and it costs money to ship stuff and stuff like that. And she goes, I don't mind, give me some money for shipping, which I don't take it from them because, well, I just don't. But there's, I kept PayPal mainly because, one mainly thing is because if I can help somebody a little bit that's not like within a driving distance to me, then I can like, hey, you got PayPal? Yeah, well, here's a little bit of money, I hope it helps, type thing, and that's why I kept it for. I don't spread misleading information, and if I do, I'm unaware of it. But my thing is I look at it as I don't want to say the gospel truth. Here comes the wind. But to me, misleading information. Let's see who's calling on the phone now. 502-308-1486. Name unavailable. Silent mode, because I don't know who the hell you are. So my thing is I kind of throw stuff out there and I let you decipher and figure out certain things for yourself. Like this whole prepping thing, what works for me, chances are it won't work for you. And what works for you, chances are it won't work for me. So for me to sit here and tell you, you need to go out and you need to get this and you need to get that and yada yada yada, you're basically just, I'm wasting your time and you're wasting my time. Now, there is a couple of things I will say that could really help your ass, and I don't care if you live in Florida, I don't care if you live in California, I don't care if you live in Tennessee below me, or Indiana, Ohio, or West Virginia next to me. The one thing that I can say that would help you is if it gets cold enough and say your power goes out. And I know a lot of y'all, some of y'all got generators and everything else. Now you go get you an oil lamp. Now the oil lamp I have, say this is the base of my oil lamp, this bottle. And here's the top of the lamp where the wick goes into. From the top piece here to the very bottom is hollow. It's called a Polish, like a Polish number 92 or a Polish number 82 type lamp. But it's the whole base is able to fit lamp oil in. Now, you take your lamp with lamp oil that's, you know, not just like a little small chamber. If you can only get a small chamber, get a small chamber. Get a couple of them. I got total of like 6 of those Polish style lamps, and a half-gallon bottle that I get my lamp oil in will fill 2, maybe 2.5 of those Polish style lamps. Set your wick, like that little puppy on fire. Adjust your wickage the way you need it. Put your shade on top of it and let that puppy run. And now you won't be running around the house in your underwear, but at the same time you won't be freezing your ass off. And a couple years ago my heater went out, and at the time I had 3 of them. And a buddy of mine came over here to top off, do some stuff for me on the side, and of course I told him, you know, the heater was out, I'm using the oil lamp pipe thing, and of course he wore his great big ass heavy work jacket inside the house, and he was inside maybe 15 minutes, and he peeled his jacket off. He said, "Man, I'm getting hotter than shit in here." And I was like, "Man, I kind of figured that." And he's like, "That all this warmth is from those 3 lamps." And I was like, "Yeah, basically." And he's like, "Man, that's crazy." I'm like, "Well, you gotta think, these are like miniature kerosene heaters, and this is what they're designed for." Well, technically they're designed for light, but in a hard press situation, they're designed for heat. And yeah, that's basically what, you know, I heated my house with in a winter, all through winter, was nothing but those little kerosene lamps. And it would be somewhere between 65 and 75 degrees in the house, just off of 3 lamps. Now, I do have heat tape around my plumbing underneath my crawl space and stuff like that. So, I mean, that saves my pipes. But, you know, inside the house, you know, when you're freezing your ass off, those little lamps, they come in handy. Now, they're like anything else of a fire source. You gotta be careful where you put them. If you got cats running around, dogs running around, things like that. So, I mean, you know, you gotta be careful with them. But they do work. And you won't freeze to death. You might not be as warm as you want to be, but you won't freeze to death. And it will definitely knock out some of your electric bill. That is one thing I will say that will benefit anybody in wintertime when it gets cold. Now, a lot of my friends are like, "Man, you live like the Amish." I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of do, and I kind of enjoy it that way." Because in my door, like my hallways, one of my hallways inside the house, I take it's a hook on both sides, put a rod across the top, and I got a great big heavy ass type blanket that goes from the top of it down to the floor. So when you walk into this side of the house, you just kind of take your arm, kind of sweep it to the side, walk through, and it comes back over. Now that right there alone, you won't believe how cold that little hallway section piece is on this side of the house. And I do the same thing, comes from the back door into the kitchen. We got like a little small room there where the washer and dryer is and everything. I do the same thing there. And it contains a lot of the cold from the doorways, and you know, it works great. Is it redneckish? Yeah, it's redneckish. Is it country? Yeah, it's, because I learned this because whenever my great-grandmother lived in her house, she hung a great big ass quilt blanket on one part of the doorways to separate a lot of the cold air from one side of the house coming into the other. That's where I learned it from. Old country ways. So, I mean, a lot of things I do, I've learned from seeing my elders do certain similar things. And It's taken me a little while to grasp it, but at least I acknowledge it. So if you can go out, you know, find just some oil lamps or somewhere. You can buy the cheap Chinese ones from Walmart for like 10-15 bucks. You get a decent sized lamp oil bottle for like 7 or 8 bucks. At least it was last time I bought some. And all through the winter, not winter, all through the summer is when I do a lot of this. I'll go out and I'll buy, you know, the wicks and different glow pieces, stuff like that. Because I got a lot of oil lamps. I'm not going to lie. I collect oil lamps. I think they're great. There's some I don't even use. They just sit up there on the top of the shelf and they look pretty, and you know, that's all there is. Now, this summer I bought 18 liter bottle, well, 64 ounce bottles. I'm not for sure exactly if it's a liter or not, but it's about 64 ounces a bottle. I bought 18 bottles of that through the summer, and I was buying them like 2 and 3 or 4 at a time. And one of the people that would see me often on a weekly basis buying this stuff, and she was like, she goes, during the summertime, it's not, you know, this ain't tiki torch fluid, is it? I'm like, no, this is called wintertime backup supply in case the power goes out. And she said, that's pretty smart. I said, yeah, I know. That's why I'm doing it. But then she started seeing me often more and more buying the stuff up. And she goes, well, look at the bright side. She goes, if you have a multi-fuel vehicle, you know, at least you got some fuel in case the gas goes out. I said, yeah, it's true. But I buy a lot of things in the off season because the prices go down. So you just gotta do what you gotta do. You know, you gotta figure out what you need, what works best for you. But the number one thing I will say, no matter where you're at, what part of the U.S. you live in, or Canada, or Mexico, if it gets cold, and it gets colder than what you're used to, a oil lamp will give you a little bit of heat. Now if you have multiples, it'll give you a lot more heat. Yeah, it'll smell like a kerosene heater, but you know, I would much rather smell something like a kerosene heater and be warm than be sitting there, you know, I'm not gonna run that, and be freezing your ass off. Because there's too many people talking about this so-called dark winter, and I have no idea whether it's gonna be they plan on shutting the power off, or if somebody's gonna send an EMP over here, or whatever they're gonna do. But everybody keeps talking about dark winter. To me, every winter is a dark winter, so you know, it is what it is. But I'm gonna shut my ass up. Y'all have a good day. I'll download this sometime tonight. Y'all see it. Y'all might see it tonight. You might see it tomorrow morning. You might see it tomorrow afternoon. There's no telling. But you know, it is what it is. But anyway, y'all have a great day. And I just wanted to kill some time and chit chat and shoot shit. And I read that comment Dan sent me. It said every time that I post a video, his old lady, she's like, hey, post another video. So y'all should be getting a dinger here soon. And it is what it is. So hasta la pasta, and catch y'all soon.